Okay, this is my 2025 reading journal flip through. This is a Notebook Therapy B5. It's a velvet cover. It feels lovely. Another chunker. My intro page here. This was just like a digital download I got from Etsy. And then this is, just spider web over the pattern. Okay, very similar to last year, my stats. I've got my format, physical ebook, audio, graphic novel, novella, and then the total for each month, and then down at the bottom. And then where did I get the book? Did I get it from work, which I work at a library, a school library. Did I get a public library, ARC through NetGalley, Kindle Unlimited, Audible? Did I purchase it, or was it given to me by a friend or family member? And then I also do star rating, which 5 to 1, and then half star ratings in between, and the monthly total, and then genre. So the ones I tracked for 2025 were romance, horror, mystery, sci-fi, fantasy, historical fiction, lit fic, nonfiction, and other, just if I had no idea what category it fell into. These were my priority reads. This was a little overly ambitious for the year. I'm not going to do this many ever again, but this is what I wanted to make sure I got done before the end of the year. Then we have my usual challenge, my don't tell me what to read, but tell me what to read reading challenge, where I just kind of make a mashup of Pop Sugar, Read Harder challenge, just some other ones all through, and then I made it like a library card. And then so the prompt and the related title, so the prompt, and then I wrote the title and author, and then the date that I finished that prompt, and then it just opens up like this. And there were 50 total in the challenge. Okay, and then I saw that a lot of people were doing like a Taylor Swift album challenge, which I do like Taylor Swift's music, but I am definitely a Posty fan, and so I thought, oh, he has 6 albums, or at least he did at the time, and I could do a challenge for that, and this was very fun. This challenge was very fun. I was trying to find books that fit the vibe of the album, so this was fun. And then on the cover bingo, I did a full board, 25 categories, and then so this is the prompt, and then the book corresponds with it on the other page. And this was also very fun. Oh, and I wrote what date I finished each challenge somewhere on there. Oh, I completed the Posty challenge on July 4th, which happens to be his birthday. Okay. Then I had my Read the Rainbow, which was just the main color of the cover, and wrote the color on the spine as well. Okay, and these were my romance reads. I was just tracking tropes. Like last year in 2024 I did a romance trope bingo, and this year I just wrote down some of the tropes that I have enjoyed or thought that I would enjoy, and then just put an X. Like I put the title and then the author, and then put an X about which trope that it followed. And so these were just the romance books that I read. And just shocking that they all fit at least one trope. Go figure. All right, and this was my Scare-a-thon that I set up. There's a YouTuber that does like a horror bingo, and so I borrowed a lot of categories from hers, and then just some other ones that I threw in there. And so we started off with thing category, and then a place, and then everything else but the cauldron. And so I just wrote a number which corresponds down here in this key, and so when I finished it I would put the title and the author if I had room to write down the author, and then that's the date that I finished it, and then I would color in the number bubble with a marker as I finished it. Okay, these were my monthly favorites. And then this was like a monthly theme where you show like a little doodle of what each theme was for the month. I can't remember who got this idea from, but I thought it was really cute. But this was a lot of work. So I did not do that for this year. I don't know if I'll do it again, but I do like the way it looks. It was a lot of work. Okay, and then here is my shelfie. I didn't do a window this time because I wanted more room for books. And then similar kind of setup where you pull the little tab and see what more books, because this was 200 books, and then as I continue to read through the year. And then this was my key for physical, ebook, and audio. Those were the colors. This took a long time to draw, but it was a lot of fun. All right, and this is my did not finish graveyard. I don't like this as much as the one I did the previous year, but I have these gates, and then this time I added the date that I DNF'd it and the percentage, like how far I made, and then there are extra tombstones next to this fence, and then a little scrap paper to write down the information. Okay, and these were my 5-star reads for the year. I put this at the very beginning of the book, and I just kind of set aside an extra copy of the covers, and then I glued them all down at the end of the year because I didn't know how many. But this looks a little chaotic. All right, and then these were my book awards. I have All the Feels, best cover, favorite couple, most humorous, worst character, scariest, and then the longest book. And then these are some of my stats. I have my average rating, by the number, and then genre chart. No surprise, romance and horror, the two biggest, and then the format. And then this was where I got it, and these were like little buildings, drawings of where I got them from. And then these were my top 5 reads for the year of any genre. Okay, and this was my January setup. This was meant to look like the front of a bookstore, like the window, and then like the signs trying to entice you to come in, and then graffiti on the side. It does not look like I envisioned it at all, but I do like the graffiti. And then these were the books that I read. And then my 4 per page, where I put the image of the cover, the rating, what format is indicated by the sticker that I use. This is physical, ebook, and then audio. And then I put where I got it from, the genre, and then the date that I finished it. And also if it's like graphic novel or YA or novella or any other kind of distinction, then I'll write that on there as well. So these are January's. Okay, and then this was February, a little Halloween theme again. This was supposed to look like a box of treats, of chocolates or whatever, but again, execution wasn't quite as what I envisioned. But here's my calendar, and then books that I read. And then this is favorite quotes page, just some funny little saying you're a creeper, and then you open up the coffin, and then there's a quote, the title of the book that it came from. And then my books read and reviews again. All right, and this was March. It was, I kind of wanted it to look like an apothecary shop. Like these are tinctures and remedies that you could purchase. And so this is my calendar, so I got the date next to them. And then this was just a window showing the outside scene. And these were old book pages that I just cut out to look like bricks. Okay, and these were the books that I read. And then some favorite quotes here, and then start with my reviews. Okay, and then this was April. I did like a stained glass type theme, which is an idea I got from Manda Made. She did it for a page set up, like a review of some books that she read, like a series or something. And so this was my calendar, little stained glass windows, and the month, and then this is just the main image. And then these are favorite quotes here. And then these are books that I read, double page over. And then my reviews. Okay, and then this was month of May, grow a book. So the calendar is little seed packets of flowers and herbs and things with, you know, the date there. And then the plants, eggplant is for romance. Shove that back in there. And then this is thriller, fantasy, historical fiction, horror, and sci-fi. And these were the books that I read for the month. And favorite quotes. And more reviews. Okay, and this was June. My vacation, this was the week I was on vacation, didn't get much reading done. It's a family vacation, and if you've been on a family vacation, you know that it is fun and it is work. So these are little ghosts on a roller coaster, and this one's enjoying it kind of and really not enjoying it. And then it says June. And then these are the books that I read, and I had the little ghosts down there on the bumper cars, which was a childhood favorite ride of mine. And then this was my favorite quotes page, and it's just like a Ferris wheel. And you open up the quote. On the bottom, I tell you what book it came from. And then I did these little tabs, like carnival tickets for my review pages. All right, and then we get into July, which I went with a Summerween theme for that reading challenge that Gabby Reads does. And so this was like a Pinterest page, and my search is Summerween. And so these were images that actually came up when I searched Summerween in Pinterest, and then I've got my calendar pages here. So this was really fun to put together. And these were the books that I read, and some of them, like I have a visit site, and you flip it over, and there might be like corresponding artwork. Or this one, I also read the second book in it. And this was What Stalks the Deep, was based on a Lovecraft story. So this was also fun to set up. And then this was my Summerween. I got the stickers on the Etsy, like the downloadable ones, and just cut them out. And then these were the 5 books that I read to go with the prompts. And these are the rest of the books that I read for the month. Get a little tip in there to get those last 4. Okay, and then this was August, and again, August is back to school for us where we live, and so I did like a 80s or 90s throwback. This is my pencil case, and on the back is my calendar with the dates and the days I finished a book. Get those back in there. And this was just like a doodle notebook page. And this was a Trapper Keeper. It opens up. I got this idea from another YouTuber, I can't remember who. And so this has the books read. And so it looks like inside of a notebook. And so I wrote down the Dewey Decimal Number that corresponds with the subject of the book. Like this one is about K-pop, and so that's the Dewey Decimal Number that corresponds with that. So this was a lot of fun putting that together. And then my books read and reviews. we get into September, which these are little shell stickers, and then I trace them with a gel pen, metallic gel pen. This is the month that I went on a trip with my best friends, and these are our towels and our Kindles on the beach. And then the books that I read. Jellyfish. Jellyfish. The books that I read in the different levels of the water. It gets darker. And then this was the last bit, and we're like underwater now. And these are the last books. And then these were the movies that we watched. We usually stick with horror movies because it's like the only time my two best friends will be brave enough to watch them, and I enjoy watching them. So, but we also watched some silly ones like Scary Movie 1 and 2, and then The Naked Gun. And of course, K-pop Demon Hunters. Big fan. All right, this is October. So this was a design I saw, I guess just Google images of Scary House. There's a little skeleton in that. Okay, and then you open it up, and inside there's a window of little ghosts living there. And then my calendar is just a bunch of tombstones down at the bottom. And then these were the books that I read for the month. A little bit. And reviews, and then I just added some little tiny stickers, spooky stickers, because I have a lot. And then this was another tip in here for that. And then we get into November, and this is like a woodland kind of scene, and these are like little pebbles, and so my calendar is down there on the pebbles with the mushrooms and stuff, and it says November. And then you open up the little doors, and there's a scene. And these were just scenes that I found on Google Images and just drew them as best I could to kind of match the scene. And these were the books that I read. Same, you know, November and December, I don't read as much horror. It's a lot more fluff, just because that's how I feel in the season. And I didn't read as much because I was trying to rewatch all the seasons of Stranger Things, getting ready for the final season. So a lot of time was invested in that. Okay, and then the books I read with the reviews. And then I'll tip in here. All right, and then we get into Merry Creepmas, which I wasn't supposed to do this page first. I thought I had skipped a page, but I didn't. So this came first for December. These were the Christmas themed horror movies that I watched, and then these were the books that I read. And these were supposed to be gremlins, like looking in the window. Okay, and then this was my December layout, and then the trees were the calendar. And my kids were like trying to open these houses, but this is not an interactive page. I ran out of interactive ideas at this point. Okay, then my reviews. Books read, reviews. Is that enough? Yep. Put a tip in there. Those. Okay, and then we get to year-end stuff. So I did do the alphabet challenge. I was like halfway through the year, and I realized that I was probably going to be able to get it done this year. So I just kept a spreadsheet and then added it at the end. And so some of them, some people, like if the word was in the title, just not the first word, then they were counting it like, well, that's not, the doesn't really count, but absolute zero, I used that for Z. So I did actually finish A to Z challenge. And then I was also halfway through the year, and I was like, I've actually read a lot of books in different states. So again, I kept a spreadsheet and knocked all of them out, and then made this page. And then I did a best of 2025. Best graphic novel was The Night Eaters, horror was Devolution, romance First Time Caller, science fiction Dark Matter, nonfiction Dinner for Vampires, historical fiction Hourglass, mystery The Change, audiobook Lights Out, and then we have young adult Devils Unto Dust, and then I did a fantasy Salt and Broom. All right, and these are just some highlights, stats highlights. Most read author was Lucy Score. I read 9 books by her. Most genre romance, no surprise there. Best reading month was May with 36 books. First challenge completed. Most 5-star reads in a month was January and October. And then these were my top 5 horror books and then my top 5 romance for the year. And then this was just kind of a, I don't know. I was just having some fun with Stranger Things. I had these stickers that I had purchased several years ago on Etsy, and I never had a chance to use them, so I just printed this image from Google. And then these were some quotes that I enjoyed from the last season, and these were just some personal thoughts that I had about the last season. Okay, yeah, that's it. And then these are just some stickers that I added. And there she is.